30. Do you need a guru? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it and your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Many people scoff at the idea of having a guru. True to human nature generally, they make a virtue of their scoffing. I am responsible for what I do, they announce, responsible for my mistakes as well as for my victories. What would I ever learn if I handed over my development to someone else? To depend on another for guidance would be an act of spiritual cowardice. It would be understandable for someone gifted with some trivial ability, for instance with words, to insist on doing his crossword puzzle himself without letting anyone else help him. But supposing, even in such trivial matters, he had no such gift, what virtue would there be in refusing to learn? For that matter, moreover, where do our gifts come from? They are not a native ability. Still, crossword puzzles are hardly an important challenge. What if a person wanted to do something daring, to climb a cliff, for instance, but refused to study the art of mountain climbing? He would climb at the risk of his life. And how much more is risked than physical life in the great adventure of the divine search, where the risk is to salvation itself? Where is the sacrifice in seeking guidance? Even a mountain guide wouldn't presume to do one's climbing for one. His purpose would be only to help the neophyte to climb safely. To have a wise guru is not a sign of weakness, but of plain common sense. All the saints, aware as they are of the hazards of the adventure, agree on the importance of having a guide or guru. And these are the heroes speaking, not cowards or spiritual weaklings. Jesus emphasized the importance of having a teacher by asking John to baptize him. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 3, we read of his coming to John. Thus, Jesus said to John, "It becometh us to fulfill all righteousness." In the Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter, Sri Krishna says, "Open thyself to those who have attained wisdom. They will be thy teachers. Ask questions of them, both verbally and mentally. Serve them faithfully and with devotion." How is the devotee to recognize one who has attained wisdom? The Gita gives us this inspiring description of the sage. By this sign is he known, being of equal grace to comrades, friends, chance-comers, strangers, lovers, enemies, aliens, and kinsmen, loving all alike, evil or good. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om. Om. Om.
I want to welcome everyone also. It's always a great joy and privilege, and we're deeply grateful to be able to be with you on Sundays. Yeah, recently, Dharma Devi and I went out to 29 Palms. We're looking at getting some property out there for all of us as a seclusion retreat. We'll hopefully have the final word on that this week. And we were driving, and you know there's a lot of dirt roads in the desert. So your GPS tells you one thing, but the reality is another. And so we were going to a friend's house, and the GPS told us to go in a certain direction, and we got lost. And I had to call our friend for actual live advice and directions. You know, there's such a simple example, but it's very appropriate for this topic of do we need a guru? Because we have a lot of information nowadays. Of course, we have Google and we have the internet. We have so much information, so much knowledge, but not necessarily wisdom not necessarily the ability to put it into practical use. It's funny, we arrived at our friend's house and she had do you remember the Rubik's Cube?
Mm-hmm.
It's and I started playing with the Rubik's Cube. And, darn it, if I couldn't figure that thing out, I needed some help. How trivial is like Swamiji was sharing this reading, or games or puzzles, and where we need to even scale a mountain and we need help. And how much more important is it in our own spiritual quest to seek out counsel, to seek out guidance? How do we know what is a true guru? We talk about a Sat guru. Sat means, it comes from the Sanskrit word truth. Swami Shankaracharya came after the Buddha. The Buddha's teaching, unfortunately has been somewhat misinterpreted as a negative philosophy of achieving nothingness. But what the Buddha really meant is that state of desirelessness, where the ego has no desires. And then Swami Shankaracharya, who came after the Buddha, gave that positive goal, that positive direction of God, which he called Sat Chit Ananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. And this is the goal of the spiritual path. And he was sharing this in a way so that we could have clarity on what we're striving for. Because that really is the crux of it. Do we need a guru? No. You don't need a guru. It really depends on what you want. And if you get to that point, that definiteness of purpose, where you realize you do want God, and not just a vague description, but an actual, tangible, direct, personal experience, then you do need a guru. Because it's simply God's law that he works through instruments. And when our heart and our desire becomes strong enough, as Yogananda said, when you get serious, God sends you books. And when you get a little bit more serious, then he sends you teachers. And when you get very earnest in your divine quest, then God sends you a guru. And remember, that guru is not a personality. Yes, the guru has to take on a form, like Yogananda, when he came into the body, and he said it was like getting used to wearing a thick overcoat on a hot summer day. It was a little uncomfortable at first, but then he got used to using that body and that personality. But the guru is something much more beyond that. The Sat Guru is someone just like you that has gone through the tribulations, the trials, all of the indifference, the struggle, everything that you have endured. That soul went through himself and found God realization and came to that perfect state of realization, and then not wanting to, you ever go out to a meal and someone wants to kind of hog the dessert to themselves, the Sat Guru doesn't do that. He wants to share. It's like that story Yogananda told when these three men came to a brick wall and they were in a desert, and the one climbed on the other's shoulders and he said, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful." And he jumped over, and the other two were waiting and never came back. And the other one climbed up the other one's shoulders and he said, "Oh my God, it's so lovely." And he jumped over and he never came back. It's the third one that climbed the wall, scaled the wall, and saw the beauty of this garden and this beautiful lake and this opal pool of peace. And he said, "How divine." And he was about to jump over, but he turned back and he remembered his friends. And he said, "What about them? I must go back and share with them." This is the Sat Guru. He is one that comes back willingly. This is the definition of an avatar. Avatar is a descent. It's a Sanskrit word for descent. It means the divine, the spirit descending, incarnating. But it's not a special puppet incarnation. It is a real soul, just like you and me, that has gone through it, that then comes back and knows full well the challenges. Remember Babaji, Mahavatar Babaji behind Keshava here. Babaji there. Mahavatar Babaji drew Lahiri Mahashaya, his disciple, to him in 1863 in northern India, in Raniket, in the foothills of the Himalayas. God bless you. Right on the advent of Dwapara Yuga, this new age of energy. So the masters are very fully aware of the complexity that we're facing in our daily lives, the myriad of distractions. LA is the quintessence of it. Right? If you can squeeze it, you can freeze it. There's just every certain distraction under the sun. The masters know. And that's why they brought back the science of Kriya Yoga. Because this is the time where we can actually appreciate, not just intellectually, but we can experience God within us. I encourage you to explore this path of Kriya Yoga. So the Satguru is the one that can lead us out. And it's not by any of his doing, it's by our own attunement, by using our will. Why did Paramahansa Yogananda come to America? The country we would say is perhaps most egotistical in a certain sense. We have so much self-will, so much determination, and yet underneath that, there's a deep spiritual undercurrent in this country. This country was founded on religious freedom. People standing up and claiming for themselves their own personal freedom and independence. And of course, deeper than that is our spiritual freedom and our spiritual liberation. Sometimes we need the Satguru, not sometimes, all the time we need him. But they only come, the avatars and the great masters don't incarnate as often as we do. We need more work. When they come, it's a special dispensation. It's a special gift. And each one teaches and emphasizes a certain direction. They're all trying to get us to the equator, but sometimes, like when the Buddha was around, he had to emphasize more self-effort, and because people were too reliant on karmakana and ritual and things of this nature, and Shankaracharya had to emphasize Satchidananda and Patanjali, another, and etc. But each one teaches the gospel of mercy and the discourse of divine love. And there's a beautiful story. I'm sure some of you have heard this story of the Buddha and the courtesan. The Buddha, as you know, was an avatar and became self-realized. After austerities for many years and meditation and fasting, and he sat under the banyan tree and he achieved God realization. And his disciples then became attracted to him just from his spiritual magnetism. He had this incredible radiance. The first sermon the Buddha gave weren't any words. It was after he achieved that perfect realization that some of his disciples saw him just walking. And just his very movements and his very way of being, they knew that there was something different about this man. So there was a time where the Buddha was meditating with his disciples under the banyan tree. And this beautiful courtesan saw him, and she was attracted to his radiance and his divine beauty. And overcome with this attraction, she ran towards him to embrace him and said, "Oh, Shining One, I love you." And the Buddha responded to her, "My beloved, I love you too. But don't touch me now, not yet." And the disciples were just, there was consternation. What has happened? He has forsaken, he's renounced the world, everything, and here he is, he's fallen in love with this courtesan. They were just perplexed. And he said, "No, don't touch me now, not yet. I will prove my true love to you. I will prove my true love to you later." And so many years went by, and the Buddha was in another village with his disciples again, meditating. And out of his meditation, out of seemingly nowhere, he said, "Oh, my beloved, the courtesan, she is in need. I must go to her." And he just got up and started running. Back where? To that very same banyan tree where they first met. And his disciples were helter-skelter behind him, following him, thinking, "Oh my God, our master has lost his mind. We thought that he had forsaken this courtesan, but here he is still attracted to her." And lo, what did they find? They found the beautiful courtesan there, laying on the ground by that very same banyan tree. But she was no longer beautiful, and there was no one around her, because she had smallpox, and her sores were all over her body and face, and they were putrefying, rancid. And she was just there alone. And so the Buddha, and all the disciples cringed at this sight. They stood back, but the Buddha went lovingly to her, embraced her, held her in his lap, whispered in her ear, "My beloved, I have waited long to demonstrate my true love for thee. Do you see now that I have loved thee always?" And then he blessed her, and he healed her, and he asked her to join their disciples. This is our calling. This is the way that we can receive the Guru in our heart of hearts. It's not enough to say what a beautiful, lovely story. It's, we too have to become supernatural in that way. It's easy. It's easy to love those around us, those that we know, our friends, our family. It's the Superman loves those that hate him. You're driving down the 10, we have a lot of opportunity to practice our religion in the cold light of smog. It's right there. It's with us all the time. But that's what Divine Mother is asking of us. And we don't have to leapfrog to that perfection. We just have to take it step by step, right where we are. We have all eternity. But great, as Kabir said, great is the Guru, great beyond words, and great is the good fortune of the disciple. God bless you. I'd like to close, well, Keshava, I forgot. Keshava is going to play this beautiful piece of Master's music, When My Dream is Done. This is a poem of Master's called God's Boatman, from Whispers from Eternity. And it speaks of this incredible love of the Avatar. I want to ply my boat many times across the gulf after death and return to Earth's shores from my home in space. I want to load my boat with all those waiting thirsty ones who have been left behind, that I may carry them to the opalescent pool of iridescent joy, there where my Father distributes his all-desire-quenching liquid peace. Oh, I will come again And again, crossing 1,000,000 crags of suffering, with bleeding feet I will come, if need be, 1,000,000,000 times, as long as I know that one stray brother is left behind. I want thee, O God, that I may give thee to all. I want salvation, that I may give it to all. Free me then, O Lord, from the bondage of this body, that I may show others how they too can free themselves. I want thine everlasting happiness, but I want also to share it with others, that all my brothers may find the way to happiness forever and forever in thee.